Ghislaine Maxwell took her case, appealed her case all the way up to the Supreme Court. She has, of course, been convicted of child abuse and trafficking, and that is established, and she's serving a prison sentence for that. Now, she then appealed her case. It was rejected in lower courts and went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court threw her appeal out immediately. They saw no grounds for any appeal for her case. It's clear that the crimes that she has been convicted of, she did, that there is no new evidence to suggest it didn't happen. And just to remind you that what she was convicted of was effectively being the procurer of girls, of children, for Jeffrey Epstein on a regular basis, on a daily basis, going out into shopping malls, into schools, into libraries, into other places where they might find vulnerable girls, and capturing them and bringing them to Jeffrey Epstein. Most of the victims say that, if anything, she was worse than Epstein, because she not only managed to lure them in and entice them into that world, she also engaged in the abuse herself. And she was convicted rightly of all of these things. The only question that emerges around her conviction is, if somebody has been convicted of child sex trafficking, why is it that the actual people who she trafficked folks to haven't also been convicted, because it involves more than Jeffrey Epstein? So that's the question mark that remains hanging over all of this. What the Supreme Court have done is made absolutely ironclad and unequivocal, unambiguous, totally certain now that she has been convicted, that conviction will not be overturned, these are the crimes she committed, and there is no question about that. Now, as soon as that happened, Donald Trump was questioned about this in the Oval Office, about whether or not he has an opinion about that. And he actually disclosed that he was open to considering a pardon for her. He actually said that he'd have to talk to the DOJ about potentially pardoning her. And the reporters then asked him, well, why? Why would you do that? She's convicted of these crimes. She's convicted of child sex trafficking. Why would that lead you to actually consider pardoning her? He said, no, I'll have to talk to the DOJ. I'll have to have a conversation with the DOJ. But why? The Supreme Court has rejected her appeal, and she's convicted of the most heinous of crimes. So why would you have any conversation with the DOJ about this? Why, as President of the United States, with all the things a president has on his plate, with all the various areas that demand your attention, why would you now have a conversation with the DOJ about potentially pardoning Ghislain Maxwell? And all he kept saying is, well, I'll just have to speak to them and see what's going on. Now, anybody else, of course, would immediately say, well, of course, that appeal was thrown out by the Supreme Court and end of story. But for him, it's not end of story. Now, let's understand this in the context of what happened just before it. Because just before it, just a few months ago, Trump moved Ghislaine Maxwell from a high security prison to a very low security, borderline luxury prison, which has its own tennis courts, which has its own leisure facilities, which has a lot of downtime, which has a lot of time to be out and about. And she was put into this sort of very light prison and moved across straight after her conversations with the Deputy Attorney General, who also was Trump's personal lawyer. So they had a series of conversations, and she was rewarded because of whatever it is she said to him with that move. And now Trump is open to discussing a pardon for her with the DOJ. Even the majority of Republican voters believe that she should be behind bars, that she's guilty, and that there is something being hidden by the administration about the Epstein case. And the fact that something is being hidden is made even more clear when we look at the actions of the House of Representatives. See, Mike Jackson, the Speaker of the House, has gone out of his way to prevent the release of the Epstein files. even though a number of people in his caucus, even though a number of Republican congressional representatives want those files to be released and are voting for those files to be released. A motion has been put down to the House to release those files, which has been put down by Republicans and voted for by Republicans. But there's just enough Republicans to prevent it going through. Now, if the composition of the House changes by just a tiny bit, then that will go through, and then the Epstein files will be released. And Mike Jackson is doing everything he can to stop that happening. What is he doing? Well, recently there's been a special election in which a new congresswoman was elected in Arizona. And ordinarily, once you're elected, the very next week you're then sworn in. But she was elected a month ago, and Mike Jackson has refused to swear her in. This is as anti-democratic and unconstitutional as you can get. Once somebody is an elected representative, they have a seat in the House and they must take that seat. But Mike Jackson is stopping her being sworn in. Why? Because as soon as she comes in, there will be enough votes to get the vote through in order to release the Epstein files. So he's making so much strenuous effort to prevent the Epstein files being released that he's even flouncing the basic tenets of his job of upholding democracy in seating elected members of the House of Representatives. So he's refusing to seat her because he knows as soon as she is, there'll be a vote the next day about releasing the Epstein files, and it will go through because he's only managed to block it on a knife edge single vote so far. This is the extent to which the reality of what's happening in the Epstein files is being hidden. And this is the extent to which Donald Trump is prepared to collude with the person at the center of all of this child abuse ring, Ghislain Maxwell, to even consider pardoning her. Now, in previous videos, I've talked about the way in which, you can piece together from information out there what Jeffrey Epstein was actually doing. We can actually deduce what was actually happening in terms of this sort of blackmail business that he had, in which he was selling his information to intelligence services around the world. Not hard. Even Howard Lutnick, his Commerce Secretary, said that openly in an interview recently that, he was in the business of blackmail. It was really clear. He didn't go for himself because he realized what he was doing, but other people did because, they were basically enticed by what he was offering. And in the end, they became subjects of blackmail. So even members of Trump's cabinet saying, yes, it was basically a blackmail ring, and that's what he was doing. Now, although we know that's exactly how he operated, what we don't know is what Donald Trump's role was in all of this. What Donald Trump's involvement and engagement was fundamentally in this. We don't know that. But what is becoming increasingly clear from his actions and from the actions of his sort of Praetorian guard around him, like the Speaker of the House, is that almost certainly it is even more sinister than we have allowed ourselves to think or imagine up to date. I hope you like my video. As a psychiatrist who loves politics and economics and philosophy, I love to make videos like this, and you can really help promote this video to other people and get it on your feed more by liking and commenting and subscribing to the video as well. We have a wonderful community of people here who comment and support each other through this very traumatic period of world history that we're going through right now. I also hope you consider becoming a subscriber to the channel and also subscribing to my e-newsletter. There's a link in the description, and that way we can stay in touch outside the channel, so you can keep abreast of all of the content that I'm making on an ongoing basis. The latest of which actually is my latest book called We the People. Very, very proud of this book. It's actually a novel, a fiction book written by myself and the famous award-winning author T.J. McGregor. Together we wrote a book about what the future might look like. Bit of a dystopian novel, but what might happen if autocracy goes to its next stage, AI predicting the potential end of humanity. I actually made a video about that. It really happened. And how things might pan out in this dystopian world, and actually how a band of committed, passionate, progressive people managed to change the trajectory, and not in the way that you think. It's not just by running a candidate and opposing the autocrat, but actually by deepening the democracy that we have and engaging in a real participatory form of democracy that sort of shifts the needle and gets us back to basics and helps us sort of rebuild our democracy. And that's within the context of a really compelling, gripping story, a bunch of fascinating characters, and I assure you, you will not be able to sort of stop turning the page until you get to the end of the book. That's what all the reviewers have said so far. Lots of people love it, and I hope you can get it. You can get it on Amazon, any of the global Amazon bookstores out there. Please do order your copy of We the People. Just put We the People Russell Razak and you'll be able to find it inside Amazon as well. Also, I hope you consider becoming a member of the channel. You can subscribe to a couple of different membership levels. All members of the channel also get some free ebooks that I produce once a month. You can buy those ebooks too from russellsbooks.com. That's russellsbooks.com, and every month I produce a new ebook on that channel, which is really about, these are the non-fiction books I produce with my team, which is really about how to learn about the world around us and the psychologies of the people who govern us, but also how to learn about ourselves, deepen our own self-awareness in a way that helps us navigate this difficult world we're in right now. So those are sort of self-help books that are produced every month, and if you're a member of the channel, you get a sort of 100% discount on those books every month. Otherwise, you can go to russellsbooks.com, as I say, and buy them anytime you like. I really hope you can become a part of this community, as I say. So this sort of supportive community, validating and helping each other, is really worth being a part of, and I hope you can join us as we all join forces to create a better tomorrow together. Thank you.